Okay, hello and welcome to the History and Genealogy virtual classroom. Today is Wednesday, November 28th, and the time is 6:34. Thank you for joining us. My name is Ellen Mays, and I will be moderating this Zoom session. Today's class, Getting More Out of Family Search, will be taught by Jake Eubanks. This class will be recorded and made available on the St. Louis County Library website. If you're viewing this Zoom session live, you are encouraged to type questions using the Q&A feature located at the bottom of your screen. The instructor will answer questions at the end of this session. I've put the link to the class handout in the chat. Please note that this link is to an updated version. If you download a copy before today, please download the version linked in the chat. I will now turn this over to Jake and we will begin the class.
All right, thanks, Ellen. Thanks for joining us this evening. As Ellen said, my name's Jake Eubanks. I'm the assistant manager here at History and Genealogy at St. Louis County Library. And we're here tonight to talk about Family Search, specifically how we can get more out of the Family Search database. For those of you, of course it's not gonna work. There we go, slideshows. For those of you who aren't familiar with us, we do offer a number of classes, and there is a prerequisite class. You don't have to take it for tonight's session, but we recommend that you do take it. Our class 204, Family Search Basics. It covers over the basis of this website, some of the different things that are available, record searching, family trees, and things of that nature. Tonight, we're going to focus in on a very specific part of the Family Search database. Now, if you're not familiar with FamilySearch is a free database that anyone can get access to. You can create your own account. There's no charge for having that account. They have family trees and many different records that are available. The FamilySearch is the digital wing of the Family History Library in Salt Lake City. Family History Library has been around for many years. They are part of the Mormon organization in Salt Lake City, as well as the Genealogical Society of Utah. They've been going around the country collecting materials for decades, using microfilm to document the records of churches, courthouses, not only in the United States, but around the world. Their microfilm collections are held at Granite Mountain in Salt Lake. And they have over 2.4 million microfilms to date. That's about 3.5 billion images. It's a lot of records that they have access to. Now, many of you are probably familiar with global searching. I hope most of you have probably used at some time Google or used the Ancestry database to do research. Global search tools are very easy to use. They do things like searching for first and last name, places where someone might have lived or a birth year. Here we see Ancestry's global search tool showing you here first and last names, place an ancestor might have lived, and a birth year. And we get very comfortable when we're doing our early searches in genealogy with these databases. The FamilySearch database has a similar method of access of global searching. It's under their search feature and it's called Records. The first time you go in here, this may be the place where you go and do your research. They have first and last name searches. You can search for the birthplace, the birth year, and there's alternative things such as searching for marriage or residence, death, and other records. And FamilySearch has 1.9 billion indexed entries, which is a lot of information. Now, you'll remember those numbers I gave you before. That's not nearly as many images as they claim they have on their microfilm collections. And if we talk about 1.9 billion images, it's very easy to get to a number like that with just basic records. The US Census, for example, if we look at the censuses from 1850 to 1940, occurring every 10 years, that would make up roughly 35% of FamilySearch's indexed materials. That's a large percentage of what they claim that they have put up and made available for us via global searching. If you include things like the 1790 to 1840 censuses, special schedules, state and territorial censuses, and censuses from other countries like England and Mexico, which they have on their website, that eats up that number pretty quickly. As you're doing early research, you're probably doing global searching. You're looking for records like the census, passenger lists, maybe draft registration cards. This is a World War I draft registration card. Or maybe naturalizations. These are very common records we look for early in our genealogical process. What you're basically doing is you're doing record searching for these. You go out and you search for the census records. You go out and you specifically search for a passenger list. You specifically search for a draft registration card. But when you're using the FamilySearch database, you're going to run into roadblocks very quickly if you try to utilize it in that way. That record search feature is going to be very limited because there's only 1.9 billion indexed entries. And most of those are the things that you've already looked for in Ancestry or other databases. So when you go to FamilySearch, don't use the record search. We want to avoid that. And we want to do more in-depth research with this search tool. In order to get more out of the FamilySearch database, we have to expand on what we've been doing, and we need to learn to ask the right questions. Common questions when we're starting out are things like, where's grandma's baptism? That's a very specific request about a very specific record. As we move along in our research and we advance further in time, we need to advance the way that we look for things. A better question would be, what's great-grandpa's village of origin? Because that question opens us up to looking for multiple records to solve the problem. We need to stop seeking records at this point and start seeking evidence. And evidence is the key here. When we're looking for great-grandpa's village of origin, that may appear on a number of different records. It might appear on his grandchildren's baptisms or his children's baptisms, on his marriage certificate. It might appear on his marriage at a church. It might appear in a naturalization record. It could possibly appear on a passenger list. There are a lot of places where that might show up. So we need to be thinking more expansively about what we're looking for. To explain evidence and what I mean by this, let's take a look at some information here. Evidence is an available body of facts based on either a belief or proposition. Evidence is not necessarily not arguable. There are ways around it because there are different types of evidence. It is not absolute. And it's important to understand that as you're searching in FamilySearch, you're going to be looking for 3 different types of evidence. You're going to be looking for direct evidence. Now, what is direct evidence? It's like a birth certificate. It's a death certificate. It is direct evidence that something happened at a certain time. But birth certificates and death certificates can provide other types of evidence as well. One of those is indirect evidence. Indirect evidence is assembling 2 pieces of evidence to provide an argument for something. So in the case of a death certificate, the death certificate is produced after someone's death. So it's not necessarily a record of their life, but it's a record produced after their life. Now that record may say certain things that we could take and apply with another record to resolve a relationship issue. That would be those 2 pieces, indirect evidence. A third type of evidence is negative evidence. And I come across this quite often when I'm using the FamilySearch database with our patrons. Negative evidence is drawing from the particular circumstances and looking for absences. Now that doesn't mean a lack of records. It means things that are missing. The great example is if every time the clock tower rings and the neighbor dog barks, and at 11 o'clock at night, the clock tower rings and the neighbor dog doesn't bark, the neighbor dog isn't there. Is the neighbor dog inside? Where is it? That's negative evidence that the neighbor dog isn't outside and can't hear the clock tower. Now, other things we need to do as we're using this FamilySearch database is we need to look for the right sources. It's very easy to get focused in and say we've got to find that passenger list. But why are we looking for that passenger list? What is it we're trying to get from that record? A great example would be where would I find great-great-grandmother's maiden name? I went great-great because that pushes us back quite a ways in time. What records might have the maiden name of a woman in 1850? Well, some of these may not exist, depending on where you are in the country. Civil marriage registers, church marriage registers, obituaries, death certificates, church death registers, maybe children's baptisms or children's birth certificates. Now, in many of these cases, civil registry in the US didn't really begin until 1905 to 1910, depending on what state you're in. My home state of Kansas didn't mandate death certificates until the 1940s. Now, they do exist in 1910, but they wouldn't exist in 1850. Other examples here. If somebody's Baptist or they're Quaker, they're not going to have children's baptisms. And so those are places where, depending on the denomination or where you're at, those may be or may not be records you can find this information in. So we need to think outside of the box, and this is where FamilySearch comes in, because many of these other records are available on FamilySearch. Land deeds and title transfers. Oftentimes the spouse is recorded. Married women would have to sign off on a land deed. If their husband sold the property, they would be listed in the acknowledgement. And while it doesn't always say their maiden name, sometimes it does. And sometimes the witnesses too are their family. And we could use those people that are signing off as witnesses to resolve their maiden name. Estate sales and inventories for their spouse's estate or their parents' estate will often name these people. So if the husband dies and there's an inventory and they sell off all of the goods, you can look at all the names on the estate and determine from that possibly her family, because they are likely buying items from that estate. Probate docket books. Many times her family will be among the people who are signing off on the probate, if maybe they're receiving money or receiving things handed out, because at least prior to, in many cases, the 1870s, a married woman was not the recipient of property from her husband. She was entitled to an interest in the property, a 1/3 interest, but she actually wouldn't have inherited anything from him unless he directly willed it to her. Wills are a great place to find the maiden name, but you got to be able to figure out, in many cases, who the parents are. If you can identify the father, oftentimes the father will name his daughter in the will. Sometimes, and I've come across this, a grandfather names his grandchildren, and we can identify the woman's maiden name via the children receiving something from her father. Guardianship accounts. If the husband died and had young children, there would often be either a guardianship account or something like an orphan's court record produced in which she's going to be named in those records. And sometimes that includes maiden name. Sometimes the guardian that is assigned is a brother or a cousin or even her parents. So we want to think outside the box as we're looking at records in FamilySearch. Most of the stuff that we're talking about is not going to be globally searchable, but they oftentimes have in-house indexes that have been created. Here, for example, is early deed records in Pennsylvania. These are dating to the 1770s here. And you can see there is a wonderful index to these records that provides you with the page numbers, where the deed was issued, the date that the deed was issued, 1767, there it is. And then that gets us to the actual deed itself. You can see the wonderful survey there and all of the beautiful handwriting on this early Pennsylvania deed. definitely need to take advantage of those indexes that exist. And I'll take a look at those as we go further into this. Now, finally, to get more out of FamilySearch, you have to do something that many genealogists will tell you you need to do, and that's be reasonably exhaustive. As you're doing your research, think about these things: time and place, the life circumstances, the community around these individuals, what access they had to record keeping, and the practices of the time, both accepted and unaccepted. So, for example, in the practices, as I mentioned, women until about the 1870s in many places, if they were married, weren't inheriting property from their husbands unless their husband actually willed it to them. Also the case in many places during the 17 and 1800s, women didn't have a legal right to a will unless they were widowed or single. Married women could not have a will. So you won't find probate records for married women. Access to record keeping. If they're living out on the rural frontier in Indiana and Ohio, or Tennessee and Kentucky, what record keeping is going on? Where are they at? If they're in Pennsylvania along the Maryland border in the 1750s, where are their records being kept? They're not being kept in Pennsylvania. They're being kept in Maryland because the closest community is Frederick. So be aware of that. Who the people are around them. This is big. And I had a wonderful question this week. A woman contacted me, and she told me that she was researching an ancestor. His name was a German name, and this was in Delaware County, Indiana. And the earliest record she had was a land patent there in 1831. Now, right off the bat, Delaware County, Indiana was a clue. And I took a look at local maps. I had an idea of what was going on before I looked, but I took a look at local maps. And while there was this German maybe name, all of the names around them were English. Now, I looked at that map and I looked at the counties around it. Next door is Randolph County, and below that is Wayne County. And she told me that this man got married to a woman by the last name of by an English last name in Randolph County. And I thought, well, there's something going on here. She said, well, I'm pretty sure he's Pennsylvania German. And I said, well, he might be Pennsylvania German. But by looking at the map, I then went to a county history and I looked at the county history. And sure enough, I knew what was going on, but I wanted to verify. The area was settled by Quakers, Quakers being a predominantly English denomination. She was looking for German baptisms in Lutheran and Reformed churches and not finding any baptisms for any of the children that she knew that this man had from this marriage. And I said, well, the kids probably weren't baptized. And the kids probably weren't baptized because their mother was probably Quaker. And she needed to contact the local research center there to find out more about the Quakers in that area to identify what meeting they might have attended. I gave her some ideas, but I didn't have access to those particular meetings. Being aware of the community, identifying who the people are, what ethnicity they are, identifying where this is on the map and looking how close they are to different borders, to different migrations, to different migration trails is going to give you clues. And then finally, looking at the denominations that settled the area. That's vitally important to doing research. And looking at their life circumstances. Where are they? What's going on? Is this the middle of the Civil War? Is this during the War of 1812? What's going on? And setting that time and place. Those are all important as you're doing this. In Pennsylvania, if we go and do research in 1850, the place we look for deed records is going to be different than the place we look in 1750 and extremely different than the place we look in 1650. The practices changed for how they recorded things. The different ethnicities handled it differently. English and Germans are turning in their land records. The Scotch Irish are hiding out and they file it all in their probate records. And those probates are being filed across the way in Maryland. So we need to be aware of those kind of things and what's going on. Applying this to FamilySearch. When we go to FamilySearch, instead of searching records, we want to search the catalog. So every time you go to FamilySearch and you want to look for records, what I want you to do is I want you to go to the catalog. The catalog is great. It's just like a library catalog, and this is just a massive library. And that catalog offers a guide, to their birth, marriage, and death records. This is exactly how they phrase it. Census records, church registers, books, periodicals, family histories, and many other records. And I love it, many other records. There are so many things in FamilySearch, it's unbelievable. The reason I use FamilySearch and why I extensively spend a lot of my time here is for the original records and the transcriptions of those original records, which are held at archives, churches, libraries, museums, societies, courthouses all over the country and all over the world. And those records, things like land, vital records. I'm talking births, marriages, deaths, church records, baptisms, burials, marriages, meeting minutes for Quaker meetings and other groups that file meeting minutes, the different court records. And that we're talking probate, circuit court, criminal court records, orphans court, and many other different types. The military records that are available, and of course tax records. Tax records are amazing, and they have a lot of wonderful tax records, particularly in colonial areas of the U.S. Before we had census records. Now the FamilySearch catalog looks just like this. So if you go in and you click search, you click catalog, this is what the search is going to look like. Now I've cut it down into a smaller window, and I'll show you the full window in a little bit. Just want to make it so that it's very clear so you can see it. The two primary things that I use in the catalog and I emphasize are the place search and the film fish number search. But there are a lot of other options here that you can get into. There's a surname search. Maybe you find family histories that they have that they've digitized. There are a lot of them. And we are an affiliate library, and we have digitized quite a few of our books through FamilySearch, which you can access. You can do a title search. If you know the title of a book, you can search for that and see if they have it and if it's been digitized, understanding that they're limited by copyright. Or an author search for the same book. You can do a subject search. And occasionally I'll use that keyword search feature that's listed there, not particularly often, but occasionally I'll use it. But when I go here, I'm using the place search. That's the primary thing that I'm taking advantage of. But occasionally I'll use that fish film search, and I'll show you why here in a minute. So let's talk about the place search. When you're searching for places in FamilySearch, you're going to follow their pattern that they've set up, which is the genealogical pattern for recording this information. You file the country, the state, the county, and then the smaller location if you need to go to that level. Most of the time, I don't go any further than county. I want to be as broad as I can with my search. So here I search for United States, Pennsylvania, Adams County, and in this case, Gettysburg. When you conduct this search, you're going to get a results page that looks like this. On your left-hand side, you'll see the search filled in under place. And on the right-hand side here, you'll see a listing of different subjects and the number of records that appear with those subjects. Now, in this particular case, there's a note, and this is why we're using this as our example. In the 1780s, this area was known as the Marsh Creek Settlement. Adams County, Pennsylvania was not formed until 1806, but people were settling there in the 1730s. And so that affects where we would look for records in this area. What's going to be filed here is mostly going to be records produced after 1806. We need to go and consult other sources to identify where this was and what, prior to 1806. Sources I would use would be the Red Book, and take a look at the Red Book and see where it was prior to that. I think it's 1850, it's York County, Pennsylvania, and prior to that, it's Lancaster County, and I think Lancaster County was formed like, I want to say 1801, not 1701, excuse me. But the Red Book is a great resource for that. If you're not familiar with that, definitely check that out. And I think they have a digitized copy here on FamilySearch. Now we blow up the search and we just take a look at these different subject headings. I want to show you just some examples here. Here's church records. Here's land and property records. Now note how low that number is. This is because we're looking at Gettysburg and not looking at county. Most land and property records are going to be held at the county level. And then vital records. There's another example. Let's talk about land records. There are many types of land records, and most of these you'll find examples of in FamilySearch. Patents and warrants are very common, deed records, land patents being issued to first landowners, land warrants or bounty warrants issued for military service, War of 1812, Indian Wars, Mexican-American War, Revolutionary War. Many people received bounty warrants. Deed records, those are the actual county records of land being transferred. Surveys conducted on land. Oftentimes those were conducted prior to receiving a warrant or patent. Licenses were often issued if, like in Pennsylvania, if somebody was not eligible for a warrant because the Penns has not purchased a portion of property, they would give someone a license to go settle unsettled lands, and hopefully in the future they would be able to obtain a warrant via survey. A caveat, that's an exception. If somebody settles a land and somebody argues, well, they don't own this portion of it, they would file a caveat against them. These are all common records that you'd find in FamilySearch. If we back our search up a little bit and we do a search for just United States, Pennsylvania, Adams County, and get rid of the Gettysburg, we can take a look at land and property records and all the different things that are listed here. And you'll see a lot of different things. Some of these are books, some of these are record sets. I want you to take a look at this one right here. Deeds 1800 to 1851. Index 1800 to 1937. Now, when I'm looking for records in FamilySearch, I have a very good ability to isolate where the actual record sets are because I know their tricks. When you're looking here, look for the very specific things like this. If it says Deeds 1800 1851, that's a record set. Note the author. The author here is Adams County, Pennsylvania, Recorder of Deeds. That's a good clue. If we looked at some of these others, they have names as the author. Dead giveaway that it's probably a book and not the actual county producing the records. So if we were to enter that, here we have that Deeds 1800 1851, clear, very, a very vague but overarching title like that. That's going to be the record set. Now, if we were to scroll down this particular page, we'll see the film and digital notes for this. Now, I told you early on, they have all these microfilms that they've got stored, and they are slowly digitizing these. They used to loan these microfilms out to libraries, and a couple of years ago, they ceased that practice, and they went to digitization, and they say they're getting very close to completing digitization of most of their records. When we look at their entry on FamilySearch, we'll see a note with what the title of something is. They provide us with a film number. And then over here on the right, and my image may be covering that up there. Let me move it there. They provide the format. And you'll see all those cameras. A camera means that it's been digitized and it's available. Now they have 3 different levels of access. And this is important. There's at-home access. There is affiliate access. And then there is Family History Library access. You'll see these images at home like this. You can access them. Sometimes there'll be a key or a camera with a key. That means affiliate or Family History Library access. You are more than welcome to contact us anytime you see something that has a key. We'll check our system and see whether or not we have access or not. If you're local, you can get access via our IP address. So if you want to sit in our parking lot and search, you can. If you can provide us with the film number and what you want, we'll do a free lookup through our lookup request service. If you're not local, go ahead and send us that lookup request. Give us the film number. Even better if you can provide us with a link to get to that film, that'd be amazing. But we'll do our best to get you that information. The one or two requests that you're looking for from those films. So if we take a look, note this one's an index. So this is an index to grantors. And there's also below there an index to grantees. I'm not going to get in that deep to deed research. We're just going to take a look at this index to grantors so you can see it. As I said, many of these sets have indexes that were created at the county courthouse, at the society, wherever it may be. And we can go into these indexes. You'll see it comes up and it looks like a microfilm. It's just digitized. And we can go into these microfilms and look. I'm just going to pull the very first entry from this grantor index, and we're going to use it to find the actual record. Make it very simple to locate this. So we'll blow that up. And you can see here our grantor, Armstrong Abbott, the grantee, and I'm going to move my video down here for you. The grantee is Jane Abbott. And then it tells us where it's located. It's in Deed Book G, page 237. The date of this deed is the 29th of July, 1810. The date of record is the 26th of December, 1815, and the location is Berwick Township. Now, why is that date of deed different than date of record? The date of record is the date that the clerk recorded this at the county courthouse. Now, what happened between 1810 and 1815, I can't say. But clearly we have a deed that was filed in 1810 but didn't get recorded at the clerk's office until 1815. That becomes a real issue when we look at wills, because when you go to look for a will, what you're looking for is what the clerk has recorded, not the actual will. So keep that in mind when you look at this. This is the clerk's recording of the deed, not necessarily the original deed. Now note also that in this case, our grantor, he has multiple deeds that are being transacted here in Adams County. So even though we're looking at this one, if I was doing this, I would want to look at all of those. And I would look for that surname throughout the deed index. I got to know all of the community. So if we go back, it was Deed Book G. So we're going to go and look in Deed Book G for this particular deed. And here it is. It's image number 146. Page numbers and image numbers in FamilySearch don't correspond. So you're going to need to look at the pages of the book to get to the right image from that index. In this case, it was that page 237, which you can see in the upper left-hand corner of the screen. Note that it's in wonderful handwriting that's fun to read, but we can do it. We can break this down. If we pull this up and blow it up, there's that 237 in the upper left, and you see they were kind and wrote Armstrong Abbott to Jane Abbott up in the upper left-hand corner of this. And this is a really cool deed. This illustrates things that you could find in the deed records that you may not think of when you think of deeds. Here, Armstrong Abbott is in 1810 signing over land to his wife, Jean Abbott. That didn't happen very often. That's very unusual. And what's really cool about this particular deed is that it also tells us the history of not only Armstrong Abbott, but of the property itself. This original plantation was found by John Abbott, who is deceased and buried on the south side. And then the father of Armstrong Abbott received a portion of the plantation, and his name was Edward Abbott. This deed lays out 3 generations of the Abbott family as well as the spouse right there, just in the introductory. portion. Now, if we go to the end of this deed, this is really cool. It also names a Rebecca W. Abbott as the witness, as well as a William Patterson. Who's he? We need to find out. And then it provides Armstrong's middle name, Armstrong Dill Abbott. That's a lot of genealogical information from a record that's just transacting land. So we need to be open to the idea that there might be more information out there than just the transaction of this piece of property. Now, as I said, this is recorded by the clerk, and note the date that the clerk recorded it, 26th of December, 1815. But the date on that deed up above where I just brought that up says January 1810, 29th day of January 1810. So there's a big differentiation between when the deed was actually drafted and when the clerk recorded it. You need to familiarize yourself with the processes of land transfer. It is so different from state to state and from time period to time period. Land title is different from time period to time period. We've written about it a couple times or a handful of times in our Passports newsletter, which is on our website. Definitely check that out. Just recently in 2020, I covered Pennsylvania land titles over 2 issues. Every state is going to be different on handling it. Some states are private land states. They existed before there was a federal land system. Those that occurred during the federal land system, we've got a wonderful land title tutorial on our website that you can check out, resources for mapping first land title, and that covers that land title practice. So both of those are on our website. Take a look at those. That can be helpful for you. So let's go back to Adams County and let's look at another type of record. Let's look at church records. We're going to look at a couple examples here. So if we pull up church records in Adams County, Pennsylvania, you'll see there's 24 entries. And remember when we looked at the narrowed version at Gettysburg, there was only 1. So this gives us a lot more information than getting down to that Gettysburg level. You'll see that there are a lot of books recorded here in the records. There's a lot of those kind of things. Let's take a look at a book, because there are useful books here. There are going to be lots of transcriptions out there that you could take advantage of. For example, this baptismal record, 1744 to 1769, looks like it could be a useful resource for us if we're looking in this area of York County. Note that there's a digital version of this book, and we're going to click there to look at it. And in this particular case, they've given us the same microfilm style imagery that we can go through and look at. And there's the cover page for this book. It tells us where it's at and the information there, and there's the different transcriptions. So this is no different than like looking at a book here at St. Louis County Library. It's just a transcribed book. It's up there on their website. It's not in copyright, so they were able to digitize it and make it available for researchers. Now let's look at another example of church records. Here's a marriage book, and we'll go ahead and click into this one. And note that this one doesn't have that click here link. We're going to need to scroll down the page and look at the film notes. There we have the camera, film number. Find one of these. It's clearly on a microfilm because it's item 5. So this is a microfilm and not an actual, this isn't a print book that they've digitized, but it's a book that was microfilmed and they've digitized it. We're going to go check that format and take a look at it. Here's that microfilmed. And this is the actual church records. So where we saw a transcription before and it was in book format, here they've gone in and it's the actual marriage book for that particular church. And we've got these different entries. Now, a lot of times these are difficult to locate, the church records. I don't know why that jumped there, but if you're looking in specific areas, if you're looking for like Catholic records, look and see if there's some sort of guide to the area. We have an example here, St. Louis, the Archdiocese parish records. We have a guide to them. FamilySearch is the way that they've digitized them. They don't necessarily know about the denominations when they're putting together the indexing for it. And so if you were to search St. Louis and try to find church records, a lot of times they don't come up. So what we recommend you do is you go to our guide and search them. You'll see in our guide, we do provide you with the FHL roll number. So you go in, you find the church you're looking for. We've given you the address, and you can go in and put that film number into the FamilySearch catalog. That's why I use that fish and film number search and why that's so useful. And so that would pull that up. We get our items, which you'll see back here. It said the item number on the left-hand side, 567. If we want the baptisms, we would go to item number 567 there. If you want to learn more about searching St. Louis Archdiocesan records, we've got a great tutorial up on the website. It'll take you through the whole thing. They are all online through FamilySearch. There are other examples like this. One of the great ones is the German Guide to Parish Registers. This is something that we use quite regularly here. A lot of these have been at least microfilmed, if not digitized by FamilySearch. There's a great book set that lists the FHL number, makes it very quick for us to locate them. We've got a whole article that appeared in June of 2016 about how to use this set and access those records. So if you're doing German church research in Germany, that's a great set to take a look at, and that article is very useful. Now I want to talk a little bit about some of the organization structure here in FamilySearch. A lot of times what they do is they take whole states' court records or whole states' marriage records, and they combine them into larger collections. And that can be kind of confusing to navigate. Here we have an example in Ohio. I've looked up Jefferson County wills. Jefferson County, Ohio is on the border with Pennsylvania. We've got early settlement there. You're going to find a lot of other types of records from the courts and not just wills. And so these wills are probably part of a larger collection, including estate files, estate sales, bill of sales, maybe estate dockets, administrators' accounts, administrators' applications, bonds, letters of administration, guardianship accounts, inventories of estates. And of course, I've got multiple dots there because I can't tell you what's going to be in Kansas versus what's going to be in Pennsylvania. It's different in every state, and a lot of times it's different in different counties. They all handle things differently. Many of these records fall under a ton of different types of courts. And so I can't even tell you, depending on what, where you're looking, where these things are going to fall. Probate records get thrown about. So there's probate courts, there's orphans courts. Those are common in Maryland and Pennsylvania. Superior court, those are common in New York, New Jersey. Surrogates court, New York, New Jersey. Courts of common pleas, circuit court. Here in Missouri, probate records are handled by the circuit court. Oftentimes they have a probate division of the circuit court, but that's where they're handled. County courts, I know the state of Texas uses county courts to handle probate, but I think there are others, maybe Mississippi. Chancery divisions to these courts, sometimes like the Chancery, I think the New York or New Jersey, it's the Chancery division of the Superior Court where they hear guardianships. Sometimes there's family and probate divisions. There's a lot of possibilities. So whenever I find wills and I can tell that they're part of a larger collection, I want to go look at the larger collection. I don't want to just look at the wills. I need to expand on what I'm looking at because we want to do that exhaustive research. So if we were to go into this, what I would do instead of scrolling down the page and looking at the wills is I would actually click here. I want to browse the larger collection that this might be part of, which is Ohio Jefferson County Court Records. This gets a little confusing. We open up that. You'll see here, Ohio Jefferson County Court Records. I want to browse all those images, which sounds ridiculous, but that's what I want to do. And that's going to take you, in some cases, to a search page, sometimes not. It depends on the collection. Here we've gone to a global search page. This stuff has not been indexed. Do not try to use this global search page. Down at the very bottom of your screen, you're going to see browse those 6,900,000 images. Click that link. This is going to bring us to Ohio Jefferson County Court Records. Now, in some cases, what this would do is take us to Ohio County Court Records, and then we would select Jefferson County, and then that would get us to our level. In this case, it's just the county level. You'll see over here, probate records. Great, that's what we want to look at. Here we are, here's all the probate records. Note that this doesn't have any indexes listed. I don't see any indexing. So sometimes what happened when they microfilmed these is that the indexes were actually in the books themselves. This is often the case. So look for your date range. For example, here we'll look at 1885 to 1891. These are applications and bonds. And if we open it up, the first, here we are, image number 3, there's our index, starting with the letter A. Sometimes the indexes aren't independent like we saw previously. They're actually in the actual items themselves, and you got to look at the dates. And sometimes you got to look at 2 or 3 because you don't know, or the dates overlap. I've seen where there are 3 books and it's book 1, 2, and book A, and they have the exact same years. You need to look at all of them. So let's do a little live demo here before we open it up for Q&A. I know it's you see it here in the slideshow. That can be useful, but it's nice to actually see it live. So I'm going to switch over here to FamilySearch so we can see it. Hopefully it's kept me signed in. It looks like it has. So when you sign into FamilySearch, in my case, I've got a big tree on FamilySearch. I'm linked into their massive trees. If I were to go into it, I'll show you that here. Let's go to my actual tree. Oh, see, I'm not signed in. So here we go. We sign in. Google says my password's got a problem. So we would sign in here. We can see my tree, and we can go in and do all these things. So when we go to the actual home page and I'm signed in, you see all the different family members and all the things going on. We go to Search Catalog. And there we are. We're in the catalog. We're going to do our place search, and I've got 2 examples here. We're going to look for a will, and we're going to look for a marriage, or at least multiple marriages tied to that will. Okay. Apparently what I'm showing isn't showing up. Let me see. I'm going to go back. We're going to try that again. Hang on just a moment with me. We'll try this again. All right, I got the thumbs up. All right, we're seeing my screen now. Okay. So this is the actual FamilySearch page. We'll go back through that real quick here and just show. You can see I've got my family members here. I'm all signed in. It's because I have my own tree on FamilySearch. We'll go in under Family Tree. I can show you the tree. Here's the example of the tree in FamilySearch. FamilySearch is interesting because it's one big giant tree. So unlike like Ancestry or MyHeritage, where you're going in, you're creating your own independent tree, here everybody's editing one big giant tree. The CEO of FamilySearch, David Rencher, jokes that I think it's his grandfather, gets changed weekly because somebody goes in and changes the name because it's misrecorded in a ton of records. He has to go in and change it back and keep changing it back. It's not fun to try to control the family tree. And I certainly have examples where people go in and they edit my tree on here, and they put things in because they pulled them from places on the web, Gen Com files and old ancestry trees, and then I got to go back in and clean it up. It gets very frustrating to do, but it is what it is. Be aware of that if you want to look at the family tree here on FamilySearch. If we go back to our main page here, up here at the top, we're going to go to search. There's that record search. We're going to skip that. We're going to go to the catalog. And here in the catalog today, I'm going to do a search in Ohio. So I'm going to search for Ohio. I don't need to type in United States. It picks up on the United States for me. I don't need to do that. And I'm going to look in Perry County. We're going to do our search in Perry County here. And as we saw before, there's the results list that I just showed you. Just kind of nice to see it happen in real time. And we're going to go to the probate records in Perry County. So here we are. Here's the Perry County probates. And in this particular case, I'm going to go look for a will. So we're going to go search the wills. Now, as I said before, we could go in and look at the whole set and browse this collection. There, it does that thing. It's all of Ohio. It's not just Perry County. So we can go in here and we can browse through this. We're going to walk through those steps just like we would have in our previous example. We're going to look, we're going to go find Perry County, and here's all the probate files. Okay, it's not just the wills. Now in this case, I'm interested in a will. I know what will I'm looking for. It dates to 1822. Let me drop my screen down here, and you'll see there is no indexing for the wills. That's because the indexing is in the actual will file. Note, we've got an overlap here, volume 2 and B. We're going to go in here and see what's going on. And we're going to kind of scroll into these. There's a couple introductory pages in this particular will digitization. We're going to get to our indexing. And the will I'm looking for is a will for a Christian Crumrine. Now, Crumrine, good German name, it's regularly misspelled. Sometimes it's C, sometimes it's K, sometimes it's G. High German, low German, CK sounds like a G. We're going to go check the Ks because I don't think it's in the Cs. Went too far. There's our case. Oh, hey, there it is. Christian Crumrine. He is will number 20 in the will book. This is volume 2. So we're going to go ahead and advance. And I think I've got it quickly preloaded here. We're going to switch up the number, but I think it's the next one here. No? It was number 20. So let's find number 20, upper left-hand corner there. There it is. There's Christian Crumrine's will as this court clerk has recorded it. Nice and neat. We could actually read this one much better than those other ones I was showing you. Now, this is a really cool will. This will dates to 1822, and it's unique. Usually when you see a will, the first person mentioned other than the person who's writing the will is usually the spouse. But in this particular case, he names off a ton of children. And then he names off his spouse, and then he names off a ton of children. The reason for that being, not all these children are her children. So in this particular example, we'll see that he bequeaths property to Catherine Crumrine, his daughter, Philip Crumrine, his son, Michael Crumrine, his son, Elizabeth IV, there's that maiden name, Elizabeth Crumrine, Elizabeth IV. So if you can figure that out, knowing where somebody got married, Elizabeth IV gets married there, there's Elizabeth Crumrine. We can find her in the will book. We got a Mary Wilson, late Mary Crumrine, and we have a Peter Crumrine. If we scroll down here to this item right here, here it says, my wife, Catherine Crumrine, and it's divided, but this is divided between my wife, Catherine Crumrine, and my children by her begotten. So these are her children. The others are not her children. And it names off Melina, Henry, Susanna, Margaret, Martin, John, Jacob, and Eliza. All of those are her children by him. There's a lot of great information right there in this will. We could go look for the marriages of all these children in the local community, and that could tell us some good stuff. Now, in this particular case, I'm looking in this particular case for the ancestors of an orphan. My ancestor, Henry Crumrine, was orphaned, and I don't know who his parents are. The only Crumrines that I could find in the county he says he came from are these right here in this will. One of these people is probably one of these men is probably his father. So interestingly enough, there's a Henry listed. That's probably his father based off of the will. But I want to look and see who they marry, what happens to them, and go from there. So that's what I did with this family. If we were to go back to the original search here in Perry County, which I'm doing now, we're going to go look at the marriage books because we've got all those people's names. We could go look and see who they married, if they married in Perry County, and then go from there to identify them. So I'm going to check Perry County for marriages. Here's marriages in Perry County, beginning in 1818 and running through 1878. I think this is a book. Yes, this is a book. There is right above it, marriage records. There it is, 1818 to 1952, and index to marriages. So there's a great example there. The book has the author's name, the actual records, probate court, county court, Perry County, Ohio. So we're going to click into that. And I'm just going to scroll down and we're going to look at what's listed here on the marriages. Note the index to the marriages here. We're going to click into that. That's the very first entry, male to and female. And we'll scroll into that. I've pre-noted this, make it quick. We would scroll through all these. They're alphabetical. And in this particular case, it's literally A, B, A, C, and then it's B, A, B, C, or, B, A, B, B, and so forth. We're going to go to index page number 57 because that's where the Crumrines are. And if we scroll in, there's Henry Crumrine marrying Sarah Main, 1822. It's in book 1, record or page number 32. If we scroll down this, we'll see, oh, there's Martin, there's Jacob. So we're in the male index. There they are. These are the guys who could potentially be my ancestor's father. And so these were the ones that we would look at. So if we go back and we're going to look for this book 1, page 32. So we're going to go to marriage records, book 1, page 32. I think it's on slide 89 here. Let me quick jump so we can see it and get to Q&A because I'm sure you're going to have a lot of questions for me. If it'll load. So there's page 32 in the upper left-hand corner here. I'm going to scroll in so you can see it. And this is pretty cool. I love this record. This is really neat. So oftentimes when a minister was going and reporting their records to the civil court, they would go all at once and take their most recent marriages and dump them off. So what you'll find in the marriage book is that they're not often in date order. They are in order of the time that the minister or pastor or in the case a priest or whomever the officiant was, sometimes like Quakers, it would be a justice of the peace, went to the local court and recorded them. So here we have 3 marriages taking place between March and April 1822, not necessarily in date order of the court. Note the minister is listed down here. His name is Andrew Hinkle. He is a minister, LS, Lutheran, LS. And here it is, Henry Crumrine and Sarah Main, the 18th day of April, 1822. There's our marriage. I believe, I thought there was another one on this page for that family. I don't see it, but there it is. So you can see he solemnized these marriages on these dates in this place. If it were me and I was doing my due diligence and doing my exhaustive research, my next project would be to research that minister. I want to know who he is, where he came from, what churches he was at, what churches he came from, because I could probably trace this family back to where he came from. I know that name, Hinkle, is a very prominent name amongst Lutheran ministers dating back to Maryland and Pennsylvania. And so I'm sure there's going to be information on him. There usually is. If there's somebody in a community that's written about, it's almost always the minister. So those are my examples that I have for you today. We're going to switch our screen back if I can make that work. All right, and we're going to open the floor for Q&A.
Okay, we have a question about possible records from the Civil War era.
Okay.
So this person has hit a dead end on a relative that died after the 1860 census and before 1865.
Okay.
He lived in Missouri, but not sure where he died. His widow filed for a Civil War widow's pension for her second husband, the man she married after this person's relative died. Is it worth getting the widow's pension packet on her second husband from the National Archives to get information on this person's relative, her first husband?
I would. Yeah, I would. She has to prove that that husband's deceased, more than likely, to obtain the pension via the other husband. So yes, I would get that record. Absolutely. Widow's pensions, I don't care what the relationship it is to the soldier, get them. Those are a must get. What's the next question?
What is the red book you mentioned?
Okay, the Red Book, I wish I had it here to show you. The Red Book is a wonderful resource for counties across the U.S. What it does is it provides us with information about the records for each state, what types of records are available. So if New York has Superior Court, it's going to talk about that Superior Court. If Pennsylvania and Maryland have the Orphans Courts, it's going to talk about those records and what records there are. Oftentimes it tells us the years. It does a map of the different counties, providing dates of formation, and then it provides a source list for each of those counties, their formation, what records are available. So vital records, court records, land records, your marriages, your deeds, what's going to be available beginning with what year. And then it also tells us from where they formed. So I provided you with that example in Pennsylvania of Adams County. Adams County is formed from the greater, it was originally Lancaster. They get a treaty which expands their land. Lancaster gets bigger and they form York. They expand their land via treaty and they get more land and they divide Adams County off. So this book tells us the dates of formation of Adams, York, and Lancaster, and it tells us the record sets available for each. So if my ancestor is in Adams County in 1750, mine were there earlier, but if they're there in 1750, their records from 1750 to 1800 are probably filed in York County, not Adams. They're there in 1730, they may be filed in Lancaster, but only if they came from Pennsylvania. If they came from Maryland, like mine did, they're actually filed in Frederick County, Maryland, because that was the closest county court to them. Frederick was way closer than going over to Lancaster and filing the records. And most likely they didn't necessarily have a good relationship with Pennsylvania. So it's a great book for going in and figuring out the formation of counties, the records for each county. If a county has burned records, like many county courthouses in Tennessee, Missouri, Kentucky, Mississippi, many of those courthouses experienced fires over the years. It'll tell you what dates those records actually exist from. In some cases, it might be 1920. You never know. If a county courthouse caught fire, the first records they would grab were the land records because those are the most important ones. So if county courthouse did catch fire, and you'll see sometimes that like the probate court records start in 1890, but the land records start in 1830. It's a pretty good clue in that there was a courthouse fire and they saved what they could. If all the records start late, but the county was formed early, definitely a courthouse fire. You're not going to find a whole lot there, and you got to figure out another way around the records. Well, FamilySearch probably isn't going to help you in that particular county. Then you got to do is figure out where the people who settled that county came from and look for the people there and make your connection. Maybe you do it through indirect evidence. Maybe you do it through DNA. There's been many articles appeared in National Geological Quarterly where they've had to do that through Tennessee and Kentucky. And many of you may have to do that with those routes where you need DNA or you need to look in Virginia or North Carolina for the people settling where they settle in Tennessee and Kentucky, and there's a courthouse fire.
Okay, does Canada have a similar database?
Well, there are going to be Canadian records in FamilySearch. I'm not as familiar with Canadian research as some of our other staff are. But they have similar records that we do. They're settled by the French and English, just like we were. They have probate records. They have land records. It's just a different structure, just like it is every county here. It's going to be that there as well. I can't say good examples for Canada, but they do exist, and they are on FamilySearch.
Would you mind showing us how to get to the passports issues that are available on the website?
Absolutely. I will reshare my screen here, and we'll go to the web if I can. So this is slcl.org. That's our website. If you hover over the research tab and scroll down to publications, you will see our passports newsletter. Here is a link for view current and past newsletters. We have them all uploaded in PDF format with the different years here, so you can go through all the back catalog. I do wish there was a nice clean index up here, and we're working on that. Hopefully we'll get that up soon. If you do have a question, if we've covered something in passports, just call us or send us an email and ask us, have you ever covered this? And we can tell you what dates. But all the back issues are there. You can also sign up to receive this through your email and get our monthly publication. It comes out 11 times a year. We do a joint December, January issue. So you can get 11 issues via email. So that's that. What other questions do we got?
Is there a way to download all the passport PDFs as one file?
We don't have it set up that way. That's something for us to consider. I'll mention that to our supervisor, see if that's something we could do.
Okay, any more questions? I see someone raise their hand. Do you have a question you want to enter in the chat? Okay, if you didn't cover all of your questions, you can always send us an email at genealogy@slcl.org. And thank you for joining us today. We hope you found this class helpful. If you have further questions or comments, please feel free to contact History and Genealogy at 314-994-3300 or by email at genealogy@slcl.org. This class has been recorded and will be made available on the library's website at www.slcl.org/genealogy and the library's YouTube channel. If you're watching this on YouTube, we invite you to like this video and post a comment below. This ends the Zoom session. Have a good evening.